What's up, Canes fans? Welcome into this edition of Canes Insight Live. I am your host, Peter Ariz. Have a special guest lined up for you very shortly here, Dalen Russell, Miami Hurricanes commit out of Christopher Columbus High School, defensive lineman. I'm going to be bringing him on here momentarily. He's ready to go. If you guys have not checked out the podcast we dropped with Isaiah Thomas, check that out. Just put that out earlier this morning. D-Money was also given the latest in terms of the recruiting front. But I'm going to bring on Dalen Russell here because he's ready to go right off the bat. Dalen, good evening, my brother. How you doing, man? My Columbus Explorer brother, and soon to be officially a Hurricane as well. Obviously, you're one of the early commits for this class, right? You pulled the trigger back in May. So you've been committed for a while now, but we appreciate you joining the show tonight. How you doing?
Good, you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. I know, like I said, you're a guy who everything I hear about you from people back at Columbus and people at Miami is high character, great energy, and obviously coming off of an incredible season in your own right as the Dade County Defensive Player of the Year, right, at Columbus and winning a state title. So it's been a whirlwind of the last like 6 to 8 months for you, right? How much has your life kind of, I guess, changed? Or I don't know if it's changed or you're just kind of seeing like your dreams finally getting realized.
Nothing has really changed besides the ground part, but seeing my dreams come into reality is a blessing.
Right. So your decision to come to Miami, obviously you made the call to do it back in May, and you had other opportunities, Louisville, Nebraska, just to name a few. But when you made your decision, what was it about the U that stood out above the other opportunities that were out there for you?
The brotherhood and all the trust that they had in the team and things like that, and how much I can make it better.
Right. And when you talk about the brotherhood, are you talking about the relationship you had with the coaches, the guys in the locker room? What exactly was it in terms of that brotherhood?
The guys in the locker room and the coaches.
Right. And look, we'll get into the Columbus connection. It's obvious, right? And we'll get into that in a little bit. But on the field, right? Like I said, you were the Dade County Defensive Player of the Year last year, right? So people can say what they want about these recruiting rankings and all that, but I know you're a guy who plays with a chip on his shoulder, knowing that you have been one of the most productive guys in the country. And at your position, right, at the end of the day, you're a pass rusher. You're asked to get after the quarterback, and you do that at a very, very high level. So can you just talk to anyone who maybe hasn't seen you play, right, who hasn't turned on your tape and watched your clips or had a chance to see you live? How would you describe your style of play?
I'm a very versatile D lineman. I can play inside and out.
And rushing the passer, right? I mean, are there any guys that you watch at the next level who you're kind of like try to take certain things from, so to speak?
I take a little bit from Aaron Donald from when I play inside and things like that.
Right. And you see a guy like Elijah Cansey, what he was just able to do, obviously getting selected in the first round out of Pittsburgh. Guys like that. I mean, talk about your versatility, right? You have the ability to rush off the edge. You can play in the inside a little bit. How does that help you not only at the high school level, but how do you feel like that's going to translate for you at the next level as
well? It's going to help me a lot, at the next level, because you got me where I can play anything, and you have to say a coach watch film, right? You can watch film on me playing outside, but in game time come, I could be on the inside and work the same moves as I do on the outside, and they won't know how to stop it because the guards will be slower.
Right. Now, who in terms of the recruiting wise at Miami, which coach do you talk to the most? Is it more Coach Jason Taylor or Coach Salavea?
Coach Salavea.
Okay. So when they're talking to you, they're letting you know, look, we have plans of doing different things with you. Scheme wise, Obviously, it's a new defense coming in with Coach Guidry. How do you see yourself fitting in with what they're trying to do?
I'm gonna fit in very well, just how I do in high school. Being very versatile and playing inside and out and playing on both ends. It'll be a lot.
Right. Now, like I said, look, obviously, I'm a Columbus guy myself. I know a lot of people at the school. Coach Trujillo, your defensive coordinator, is a guy who's been there for a very long time, and I know him. Everything I hear about you is great leader. What you're bringing to the locker room is you're a guy who is there to establish culture, right? So, just talk a little bit about how important you think that side of it is for you, what you're going to bring to the locker room in Miami, and kind of describe, I guess, the type of leader that you are.
It's very important. I don't talk a lot in practice, but I show with the reps. And that's what a leader does. Take it, go to practice for effort and everything, lead by example and things like that.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about your athletic background, man. I mean, what other sports did you play any other sports growing up? I have some people around town that tell me you can play a little basketball.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what other sports you played and things like that.
I started playing. I played basketball, but I started playing in like the 7th grade. I
Okay.
started taking that serious then, and that's when my athletic ability started to kick in a little bit more. And you can see the difference from my freshman year when you see it. You look at a lot of freshmen, they come in, a little bit slower than how I did.
Interesting. So you think, because you played football your whole life, I'm assuming, growing up then.
Yeah.
So you think the basketball is what kind of got that explosiveness out of you, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. So in other words, it helped you drop some of that baby fat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my guy Kendrick, actually, I think he coaches you on one of your travel teams.
Yeah, he
So,
does.
so I was talking to him about you, and he's another guy who said, again, that's not, I know basketball is not what you're gonna play at the next level, but everything that you bring to the floor there, it translates as well. So I wanted to talk to you about, obviously, the Columbus ties, right? I believe you were the first official commit to the Mario Cristobal staff from Columbus. Obviously, Ryan Rodriguez is over there, but he was committed to the previous staff.
Yeah.
And then Lou Cristobal also recently transferred over. But you were the first official one, and everyone knows that Columbus has guys every year pretty much that are going at a high level, right? So what did that mean to you? Obviously, their ties to school. It doesn't look, just because they went to the same high school as you doesn't mean that's the reason you're going to school there. But just the familiarity and the stuff that you heard about Coach Cristobal and Coach Mirabal and kind of that group.
It played a big part, because they grew up. Coach Cristobal grew up playing O-line for Columbus, so he know how the trenches work and how much work you got to put in the weight room and on the field to be good at what you do.
Right. Do you keep in touch with any of the guys, the Columbus guys, like a Josh Uche, for example, who was at the NFL level, played at Michigan, um, a Josh Jobe, a Dion Bush? Do you keep in touch with any of those guys?
I keep in touch with Josh Uche. He was at a few of the Columbus workouts, the team workouts, and he gave me some tips.
Right. No, and listen, it's an interesting story with Uche because obviously he was committed to Miami at one point. There was a new coaching staff coming in. I don't think that they kind of evaluated him and wanted to go a separate way. He ended up in a great situation for himself in Michigan. We see how it turned out, and we see how he's doing right now for the Patriots. So it's interesting. You guys, I mean, what's your height and weight right now? It probably isn't far off from what he was or he is right now too.
I'm at 6'3", like 270.
So you might have an inch or two on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're at 270 right now. What'd you play last season at?
Like 265. I've been in the same range all year. Between 265 and 270.
a lot of the guys I talk to who are committed, they tell me that the staff is just kind of telling them, do what you're doing. Don't worry about your weight. We'll worry about that when you get here. Is
Yeah,
that what they've kind of told you as well?
yeah.
And do you feel like you're a guy who, once you get there, you're gonna want to put some weight on, you're gonna want to drop it and get leaner? Do you have any idea where you think it's gonna end up, going? I mean, I think naturally you'll put weight on, right? That's just how it
Yeah, I'm gonna
goes.
definitely put weight on, but at the same time, I'll probably get a little bit leaner too.
Right. Yeah. Staying as quick as you can,
Yeah.
obviously, is priority number one. I have a few more questions before I let you go, Dalen. What's your off season like in terms of like the workouts and practice that you have to do?
Just team workouts. You know, team workouts. We live, we be on the field, conditioning and things like that. So it's very intense because you know we coming back off a state championship, and we try to
Right.
get another one.
Definitely. And I mean, look, obviously, you guys are Columbus is always the hunted, but coming off a state title, it's going to be at another level this year,
Yeah.
100%. And what are you doing now? You at the park right now?
Yeah, I'm watching my brother practice. We getting ready to leave now.
Nice. I heard you're doing some reffing in the off season, some flag football.
Yeah, for the
Uh,
community to give back.
well, talk to me about that, man. What made you want to get into that?
I've been doing this since I started high school. You know, it's just to give back to the park I grew up at.
What park was that?
Kingdom Boys and Girls Club.
There you go, man. KBG.
Yeah,
Yep. That was my park too, man. Definitely. That's the is that where you are right now too?
yeah,
There you go, man. KBG through and through. I like it. KBG, Columbus, and the Canes. I mean, what's not to like?
yeah.
So I'll let you go here in just a second, Dalen. If you wanted to kind of give the Canes fans a little message about kind of how excited you are to be a part of this class. And obviously, again, you were an early commit, so you kind of, I think, set the tone for a lot of things moving forward.
Yeah. To all the Canes fans, I'm glad to be a Cane. You know, I can't wait to get in the building and get to work in.
Definitely. Hey, one more thing, man. When you're reffing with those kids, right? They ever give you any attitude? You have to snap them back into place.
No, they do sometimes, but I don't really snap them back into place. I just tell the coaches and be like, you got to tell them to relax and
There
things
you
like
go.
that.
Okay. So you're the chill ref.
Yeah.
All right, good. Dalen Russell, man, I appreciate the time tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening and best of luck moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, Dalen. Later, man. All right, awesome conversation there with Dalen Russell. I'm gonna bring my next guest on here, my good friend Cammy,
What's
who
up, guys? How you doing? Thanks for having me on, Pete. That was an awesome interview, by the way. That what a really just an amazing thing to hear. I mean, there's a kid who's in high school giving back to community already. You know, it's not like he's going to college and they're forcing him to do it and fill up the hours. So that's awesome. Good for Dalen Russell, man. That is really cool to see. And yeah, you mentioned it, right? Hometown kid, Columbus, Kane, and KGB Park. I mean, doesn't get much better than that. So really, I was that was really cool interview. Good job, Pete.
Yeah, man, it's funny because I had a guy that I know who told me, "Hey, my son's playing at this flag football league, and Dalen Russell was refereeing one of the games, and he was a really nice kid. You could just see how he interacted with the parents and the coaches and the players on the field. So you just hear stuff like that. Like I said in the interview a couple times. Obviously, I still have my ties back at Columbus, and everything that you hear about him is he is the sort of locker room culture builder that obviously this Miami staff has tried to flip. And the most impressive thing to me and most important thing to me, because you always hear the word tweener thrown around with him, but he says he's 6'3", 270. And look, if that's the case, then that is an awesome base for him to be coming into to Miami at with still a full year of high school to play.
Yeah, really just sounded like a great kid. Excited to have that locker room. And when you talk about Mario recruiting good people, good, talent obviously is always going to be, what we look for in any football team. Every football team in the country is looking for talent. But when you combine talent with actual, good, hardworking people that want to go to work every single day, don't matter, rain, snow, doesn't matter. They just want to come to work. It feels like he's that kind of guy. He's that kind of dude. And what better way to come in, learn behind Leonard Taylor, learn behind some of those other guys. And I think Guidry's going to make this guy a weapon. Like you said, he's very versatile inside, outside. Yeah, man, he might be a 3-star guy, but I think you might be a little bit more, it might be a little bit more to him than just those 3 stars.
Well, I brought up Josh Uche, and I think, look, at the end of the day, Uche ended up being a pretty freakish athlete. I believe his testing numbers were top of the top at his position, right? But Uche was not the biggest recruit. Manny Diaz and his staff, I think it was that staff who wasn't very big on him. So they kind of dropped him and let him go to Michigan. And he ended up being a 2nd-round pick and has been a pretty good player for the Patriots at the next level. So he is a guy at Columbus that, again, we know Mario and them are going to have as much intel as they need at Columbus, and they got him on board early.
You mentioned really interesting. You mentioned Kalijah Cansey, which my Bucks took him in the 1st round, but very, very good job, Pete. I mean, I'm not I'm tooting your horn too much, but man, this kid is undersized. This kid is versatile. He's exactly, it's a great, match. I hope Dalen could watch his film because he did some very, very good things on Pittsburgh's D-line, obviously, to end up as a 1st-round pick, but undersized as can be. And that's why I'm glad he said Aaron Donald because, Aaron Donald might be the best D tackle we've ever seen, but he is an undersized D tackle that was not, the greatest measurables, not the greatest this, that, and the other. And all of a sudden, he's the best player probably we've ever seen in our lifetime at D tackle. So I'm glad he's watching, him and hopefully, yeah, like you mentioned, Kalijah Cansey, love that shout out. Great, great, guy to have his model his game after.
James Scott says, you mean putting solid talent together along with a competent development team, which is something the U's been missing for quite some time. 100%. But I mean, look, everyone's expecting Mario to just be landing these 5-star recruits, which, yes, he's doing a pretty good job of, not landing every single one of them recently, but overall been doing a great job recruiting, right? And you're going to be able to mix that in with, again, if you watch some of these interviews that we do here, you get a good feel for some of these prospects, right? Isaiah Thomas, I had him on the live last week. You could tell how football hungry that he is. The biggest thing he talked about is how much he really is into the playbook, the X's and O's side of things. And this is a guy from Canada who hockey and basketball were pushed on him at a young age. And he wanted to play football, and that's what he's been drawn to, right? Derek Plaz from the Jacksonville area. Very high upside developmental offensive line prospect. You listen to some of the stuff that he said in my conversation with him, and it was very, different than how a lot of guys who have been coming to Miami have kind of portrayed themselves, right? So in terms of the maturity levels coming in, way higher, and that's what they're trying to bring here on top of just the talent level.
I think what James is saying, though, is he's right? It's taking a competent development and applying that to the players, right? So maybe grabbing a talent like, and rest in peace, but maybe getting a guy like Sam Bruce, a few years ago, that guy's not ready to come into this locker room and do whatever, because he might not be a fit, rest in peace. I didn't mean to, but that kind of, it's the same thing with maybe a guy like Jalen Hayward. I know we all love his talent, but can he come in and be mature enough to be a locker room guy? Because what ends up happening more often than not, right? You get these high star or 4 or 5 star recruits, whatever it is. And it turns out that, hey, they're not ready to play college football right away, day one, right? So you talk about a Cyrus Moss, you talk about a Jaden Wayne. These guys have to go to work for 2 years and kind of shut up before they actually play. They might play their first year. I'm not knocking their playing time year 1 or 2, but to actually be where they envision being, it's going to take 2 years of hard work, dedication, kind of putting your head down. And that's the development, the competent development that we haven't had. I feel like guys have just come in here and either, gave up or they just kind of just roll. They're just, rolling with the flow and not really becoming leaders, right? When you get guys like Cam Kitchens establishing a culture in an environment of winning, right? Day one. And I feel like that's where you build the locker room with guys like that. So yeah, you're 100% right. Getting quality character guys, it's going to build locker room. And it's not even like we're sacrificing on the talent, right? We have a top, whatever it is, 15, 17, whatever it is, team in the recruiting in the country right now. And that class is going to get stronger. Hopefully this weekend, we'll hear some good news from one of, any of these guys coming to the cookout, because it's definitely going to be a busy weekend. So definitely, I love this class. I think they did a great job of stacking up depth with 3 or, lower star guys, and then supplementing that with obviously the talent. So I think it's just a really, really deep and a good class. And hopefully we get more high character guys.
Now, you mentioned something that Coach Cristobal touched on as well at ACC Media Days. I wanted to get into some of the stuff from ACC Media Day. But you talked about how there weren't really guys developing as leaders. And I think a lot of times that comes down to there weren't that many great leaders on these teams as it is, right? So what Coach Cristobal talked about was the importance of meshing these guys they're bringing from the portal with the young talent, right? So how much does it help a Francis Mauigoa and a Samson Okunlola to have a Matt Lee, who was awesome at Media Days, who's been, a starter, played a ton of snaps at the collegiate level at UCF, played in big games, comes over here. I'm hearing a lot of great things from the NFL scouts in terms of his talent level, him being a top 5 type center in the country. But you have a guy like him. You have a Javion Cohen coming over from Alabama, who are established big time players at the collegiate level, who have clout that these young guys can now look up to, right? And even a Zion Nelson, who has gone through his struggles with his injuries, right? If he's able to get out there and be healthy, another guy who's played a lot of snaps at the collegiate level. So you can kind of start to build the levels of the hierarchy, so to speak, right? Because you'd expect, Matt Lee will be gone after this year. Javion Cohen, if he has the year that we all hope for him to have, has a good chance of going pro, right? But that's where, and then Zion Nelson, of course, will be gone after this year too. But then those guys who were the 5 stars, the Francis Mauigoas, the Samsons, you have a Frankie Tinalau who is there, obviously, and Inez Cooper, we know what he is. Jalen Rivers has this year, has next year. So you're building some real depth there. Everyone's excited about it, but that's where I think you can start to look position by position at some of the portal guys they brought in, where that's going to help, should hypothetically help building this roster up.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something great. It's even if they're there for a year, right? So it's just for this year. Javion Cohen, let's just assume Javion Cohen has a great year and Matt Lee does too. They go to the NFL. At least Mauigoa and Okunlola, as 18-year-old freshmen, I'm assuming, they got to see what it was like for a guy to come in, do his job, lead his team, do what he needs to do, work off the field, on the field, and then go to the NFL. Right. So they can see the formula right there in their face. It's like, hey, a guy I was playing with, my boy, Matt. Yeah, Matt. Well, he just got drafted in the 2nd round of the NFL draft. Okay, that's the formula. And obviously, I mean, we don't even have to talk about the upside of an Okunlola and Mauigoa and the fact that they're tackles. It's a whole nother ball game, right? They can be top 5 picks, both of them. I mean, so it's really just, yeah, I mean, they have the talent, right? Those guys are freakish talent. So one of the best offensive linemen we've ever from the high school we've ever retrieved. So at this point, it's just like, yeah, it's like leadership. Show them a Matt Lee, show them a Javion Cohen, show them how it's done, And then year 2, it's all theirs. They have the Ferrari. The keys to the Ferrari are theirs. And so, yeah, like you mentioned, we have a few guys going, but that's the system, right? That's what Alabama, that's what Ohio State, that's what Clemson, that's what these guys do, these Georgias of the college football world. They just funnel in on offensive linemen. And we're not there yet, obviously, but building this, even with the transfers and stuff like that, it starts here. And if we can get that experience from these 2 transfers, Javion and Matt Lee, I think they can have tremendous impacts on these younger guys, the whole room, but specifically, obviously, hopefully Maui Goa and Okunlola.
And then you look at other positions. I mean, you look at Mauigoa's brother, Francisco Mauigoa, the impact that he'll have at the linebacker position, that leadership as well. He's played a ton of football coming over from Washington State. At the cornerback spot, Jaden Davis started a ton of games at Oklahoma. Devontae Brown, obviously his younger brother, Damari Brown, that's going to be a natural kind of leadership connection there. But you can just look across the board and you can see that they brought in a lot of guys who should hypothetically look. Not everyone that they bring in just going to be a natural born leader, right? So it's not as easy as saying, oh well, this guy's played a lot of football, so he's a leader. But what you've heard is that these guys that they picked, the Branson Deans of the world, that I don't think a lot of people are talking enough about, coming over from Purdue, another guy with some NFL ability, not the biggest, not a space eater that everyone's hoping to add to the roster, but extremely productive, gets in the backfield, played a lot of football in the Big Ten that has really, really good trench play. So he's another guy who I think can come in.
What better way for Dalen Russell to go behind him, right? It's the same thing as what we just mentioned on the offensive side. Defensive side, the same thing. This guy's undersized too, right? A little bit. It doesn't matter.
Dalen Russell might be gone. Branson Dean, I think, probably has 1 year and he's gone. And Dalen Russell obviously isn't coming in until next year. So listen, for Branson Dean's sake, hopefully he has a great year and he's gone to the NFL. But that's not a bad. He's listed as 6'2", 280. So that's not a bad. You can kind of envision. You watch and you see what Branson Dean does this year, and you say, look, that could be where a guy like Dalen Russell slides in and plays. Canes fans, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat here. I wanted to get into. We'll get into more media day stuff. But I wanted to talk about some of the updates on the ATM, which, again, if you guys are just joining this broadcast, like and subscribe, sign up on the website. It's completely free. D-Money's always bringing the latest on the recruiting front. I'm always doing the interviews on the podcast, on the live shows, and we have our podcast every week. Again, bring you the latest in the recruiting front and then normally bringing you a guest as well. But obviously it's the barbecue weekend and everyone's looking for updates there. But as D-Money mentioned on his update from Monday night, there are going to be I don't want to say a ton. He says the word he uses, several elite players on campus this weekend, including at least one major name that's being kept quiet. So in today's day and age, it's not always the greatest thing to have all the information out there who's going to be there. I'm sure this stuff will come out after the fact, but a lot of times if this stuff leaks beforehand, if it's a kid who's committed elsewhere or a guy who is already getting pressured heavily from another coaching staff, if it gets out, it just turns the heat up a little bit. So obviously the staff keeping things coy for that reason. But Jalen Hayward expected on campus some point this weekend. A guy that Cammy, you were mentioning, obviously they're seem to be doing their background research on that front to make sure he's a guy who will fit locker room wise. But we know he's an exceptional talent. Former Georgia commit Eddie Pierre-Louis out of Tampa, offensive lineman. Communication has continued to pick back up as D-Money first reported last week. He is expected to be there this weekend. Zaquan Patterson looks like he'll be at Auburn this weekend, but Miami feels very confident in him. Chris Cole, some things may have changed since D-Money put this update out. As he said on the podcast yesterday, Georgia seems to be the trending school there. Kind of similar to what we just mentioned in terms of them keeping things quiet. Miami is recruiting several guys committed elsewhere, few that are not on the radar, meaning maybe there hasn't been articles written about their connection to Miami. And one of them is a flip candidate sooner than later. I know it's sort of a tease, as we have someone even asking here in the chat, any idea who the major name is? I don't. Now, D-Money might, but I don't think the staff is even, when it comes to this and the way that a lot of times, again, they don't like things to leak that don't need to be leaked that will sound alarms, right? So I don't think that anyone other than the people inside that building really know, and the player themselves knows who it is. But D-Money's been on the money, no pun intended, recently in terms of calling things out. He said the fireworks, watch out for some fireworks. A few days later, JoJo Trader committed, which that's another group of great kids in this recruiting class, Cami, that Miami Gardens Ravens crew that we had on the show with Brad Tejeda. But yeah, I think recruiting is just gonna keep chugging along here. The barbecue is a big weekend. Obviously, I know we'll have a ton of content coming from that next week, but wanted to get into a couple more things here, Cammy, from ACC Media Day. Cam Kitchens, another guy who was brought out there. Obviously, Matt Lee, TVD, Cam Kitchens. Cam Kitchens was asked about the safety duo, him and James Williams, right? And kind of the expectations, right? James Williams is a guy, we know what Cam Kitchens is an All-American at this point. But I know James Williams, someone you've always been excited about. Obviously, didn't have the best year on film last year, and a lot of that may have been related to the shoulder injury. But that could be a special duo for sure.
Yeah, I mean, James Williams, we all know, his profile coming out of high school, 5-star freak athlete, very, very big safety, I don't know, 6'5" or 6'4", but like Isaiah
6'5",
Simmons. Yeah, I mean, everyone was thinking Isaiah Simmons when we're being scouted in high school. The thing with James Williams, and when he puts it all together, he's going to be a great player. But for right now, it just seems like he's playing timid or not 100% speed. And that's not a knock on him. Maybe he was thinking too much, or maybe he was trying to learn. Whatever it is, it's in the past.
I think it was the shoulder.
Exactly. It could be his injury, and that definitely could have impacted him mentally more than physically. But I think if he puts it all together, he's like a no-brainer. Yeah, I get the 5 stars. I'm not running off his high school film. I mean, I am, and I am it. I am, and I'm not. But he hasn't put together what what a 5-star would want to do. But again, he had a shoulder injury. Thanks, them Canes 01. It might have been a labrum. I'm with you. If he puts it all together, especially playing on the other side, Cam Kitchens, I mean, that makes your life easier. So yeah, and especially, I just think, listen, I don't. It was really frustrating for me and I'm sure everyone watching, but like, it's not even, I can't even blame all the players at some point, because you're on the 11-yard line, Middle Tennessee State's, it's raining, it's in Hard Rock Stadium, and they throw an 89-yard bomb. Like, it happened not once, not twice. It happened like, I don't know, 20 times. It felt like every game, it was just like, here we go again. And at that point, I just kind of gave up on my hopes for anything defensive. As soon as defense come around, I'm just like, here we go again. And I kind of toss all that in the same category. So now moving forward, it's a new page. James Williams is going to have a new coaching, it's his second year with the coaching staff, but a new defensive coordinator. Hopefully he can use him a lot better. And yeah, like you said, his injury could have definitely impacted him mentally or physically even. So hopefully he's healthy. And yeah, he plays alongside Cam Kitchens. I would have a hard time seeing there's any other better safety duo in the ACC.
I think it was definitely the tackling and the physicality that was lacked, because again, he couldn't really wrap up, was kind of just throwing his, and this, I heard this from, people who were around too. So this wasn't just my observations. But you mentioned something important there. Lance Guidry, very excited about him. Just talking to some people who have watched his scheme. I'm talking about NFL people who watched a lot of his schemes, and he's a guy who throws a lot of wild cards out there, likes to disguise a lot of things. And James Williams is the perfect player to sort of disguise, because hypothetically, he's a guy who should be able to cover tight ends, should be able to cover some of these bigger receiver flex guys who maybe aren't real tight ends or guys who are used much in the blocking game. But at the same time, can blitz him, right? Can kind of use him as a quarterback spy, which is so important in today's day and age, is having a guy who can kind of mask a running quarterback, so to speak. So how he's used, because remember, there's guys like a Markeith Williams at the safety spot who you could have a Kitchens, a James Williams, and another defensive back, another safety out there as well. So we're talking about the duo, of course, but I think James Williams will, at his best, be used as a chess piece who we aren't necessarily calling him a defensive back, but we are calling him a linebacker, and he's just going to be an exciting defensive player at his best. I really think that the sky's the limit for him.
And I think, just to tie this back to what we mentioned earlier, right? James Williams committed to University of Miami as a 5-star, and he really didn't have the luxury of having a senior, a junior, a leader kind of show him the ropes, like we were mentioning earlier, right? With a Javion Cohen, with a Matt Lee, right? So it's part of that, competent development conversation, where maybe James Williams came in and just kind of his first 2 years, he was just going with the flow, or didn't know. I'm not blaming James Williams, but it's different when you have a Cam Kitchens in your ear, like now, fast forward to year 2, right? But if Cam Kitchens was a senior in a hypothetical ideal world, or whatever, or not ideal, but in a world where James, you know what I'm saying? He's coming in, there's a veteran already there. He can learn from him. He can understand how to go to work every day. That's really what it is. I mean, listen, life is hard. If you just put your head down, go to work, a lot of good things will come. And I think that's the part where we're kind of, obviously, as Canes fans, we know work. We're all, Mario's all about that, but it's really true. Just come in, put your head down, go to work. And I think, hopefully, even though he didn't have an experienced guy in front of him, hopefully now he can get this injury behind him and just, blossom into this, first round, second, whatever it is, this highly productive college and NFL player, because he's got all the scouting profile intangibles to do it. So let's see if it can happen. I got a question for you, Pete.
Yeah.
About the media day. Sorry to cut you off. I wanted to hear your perspective on Mario's I guess they lobbed him up an NIL deal as NIL question about Messi, and he tied it into Messi. That was really cool. What were your thoughts on that? And Messi overall is taking over.
Yeah, no, I think obviously that was an easy one for him, but he's right. I mean, and it's something that, listen, D Money has harped on this forever before the NIL era, as most Canes fans have as well. But Miami's a big city. There's a lot more opportunities here if that's really what you're about, which is what a lot of guys are today, and can't fault them. You almost have to be, right? Now, if you take care of your business on the football field, everything else is going to take care of itself. But just naturally being in this city, there's going to be a lot more opportunities outside of your natural small college town, mom and pop shops. And that's not to say, look, guys at Ohio State, or, Anthony Richardson even had some national bigger deals last year. So it can happen, but a lot of times that's the quarterback position, right? So to me, yes, it was kind of a joking response, but it wasn't really, because at the same time, he's right. And that's kind of what Messi obviously is betting on himself, because he had offers from the Saudi Pro League. He had, that it was really going to come down to the Saudi Pro League and the MLS, right? Because it didn't look like he was going to be able to go back to Barcelona with some issues that they had. So he bet on Miami, and the package up front wasn't as much as the opportunity in Saudi, but it's the commercial opportunities that he has, and obviously he's getting cuts of the Apple deal and his own jersey sales, which are unprecedented. But it's a valid argument, and it's just something that, again, naturally makes Miami the hot place now. You see all the celebrities. It was really cool to see the first couple games, everyone coming down there. So this sort of stuff to me is nothing but good for the recruiting front. It's just got to win games, man. I mean, LeBron was
100%.
here in Miami. Miami was hot with LeBron. Obviously, and they were the Heatles, right? And it didn't necessarily do anything for the football program at the end of the day. So you gotta build your own momentum if you're Miami and Coach Cristobal.
100%. And yeah, I mean, I think it's telling. You are right. We got to win games. It's not about all the hoopla and all that stuff. It is about winning games, but it is cool to see that a guy, obviously an international superstar, he can go anywhere he wants and play anywhere he wants for how much basically he wants. I mean, basically he was offered $1 billion from the Saudis, and he decided I'm gonna pick Miami, right? And so I think it's cool, A, quality of life, but B, I think more so, and I'm doing Mario's job here, but these players that go to Alabama, that go to Georgia, that go to Ohio State, and that go to Clemson and all the other schools, they come back to Miami to train in the offseason, right? When they go to the NFL in their first round, second round picks, they go back to Miami to go train. They go back to Miami to go live. They go back to Miami to work out, to do all these things, to be with everyone is in South Florida, right? And especially if you're from South Florida, right? You're going to go to Alabama for 4 years. You're going to graduate, go to the NFL, and then you're just going to end up back in Miami either way. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just more. It's another point, right? We had a great sports year, whether it was the Final Four run with our Canes, FAU. We had the Panthers, an 8 seed going to the Stanley Cup. We had the Heat, a play-in 8 seed, go to the finals. We had a great, and now Messi. So it seems like we are the epicenter of the sports world, and it does, on a macro level conversation, it does feel like Messi coming here really. I mean, we got the F1 race here now too. So it's happening here. And I feel like that could have a tremendous impact. It should have a tremendous impact for recruiting, right? Take an 18-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid.
It should. I mean, and especially now springtime, these guys are taking the visits, which there's a lot of stuff going on in the springtime, always down here in South Florida. I mean, look, if Jorge Mas could get Messi to say no to Al Hilal, the biggest club in Asia, then I think Coach Cristobal can get a lot more kids to turn down Nick Saban in Tuscaloosa. Why not?
Yeah, agreed. Well, he's starting to, right? We saw Jaleel Skinner, we saw Javion Cohen, so we're getting there.
And
how about
obviously Kevin Riley at the running back spot as well. A couple more things here before we wrap up. Canes fans get any more? Royal Partridge asking for measurements. Are you referring to Dalen Russell? Because in his interview, he said he was 6'3", 270. Obviously, he's listed, I believe, at 6'1", 235 on 247 Sports. And that's kind of what we were saying. If that's what he's at, 6'3", 270, then that's a really good base to come in at. So let's see. But if that's not what you were referring to, then let us know. Cammy, just like I said, I want to kind of wrap up with a couple things here, but the position that is really well laid out right now, I think interior wise, maybe not, but the edge rushers, right? I think you're starting to build some real depth there with a lot of the young guys that you brought in. And then obviously you have the Jafari Harveys, who's Jafari has been here for now. This is going to be his 5th year. Played a lot of football, been very productive. Akeem Mesidor, NFL type talent, can play him all over the line. Chance Williams has been a super solid player going into his 4th year at Miami. Leonard Taylor, which I said on the podcast yesterday, is the most intriguing prospect when it comes to NFL scouts right now on this team. But he still has to put a lot of things together in terms of consistency. He just, that pass rush ability that just flashes off the screen. And then obviously you look at the Ruben Baines, the Jaden Waynes. Ruben Bain, everyone expected him to have a heck of a season right off the bat.
Everyone on that Miami roster and coaching staff is talking about Ruben Hurricane Bain. You know, when there's one message across, it carries throughout the team. It feels like it's going to be real. It feels like it's going to be, I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Matt Lee. I think it was or TVD. I don't know who it was, but they went out of their way to mention Ruben Bain on ACC Media Day, which like a freshman DN that doesn't even plays on the other side of the ball didn't have to do that. Mario talks about it. It's not just a puff piece with him. It feels like this guy could be special, and from the jump.
Definitely. Terry E just said, I hope Miami fans know Alonzo. Obviously, Alonzo Highsmith has a lot to do with recruiting. Alonzo is definitely heavily involved, and he's watching film on every guy that's pretty much getting considered for an offer, and he is writing his own reports, which, again, people need to understand. Alonzo Highsmith has been an assistant general manager in the NFL, has been a high-level scout, right? So you have someone in the building who is, again, I don't think people have to understand at the end of the day, Mario Cristobal and his staff at the position coaches, they're going to be the ones coaching these guys. They have to want to offer them. But you have an Alonzo Highsmith with his pedigree and his background in the scouting world. The reports that he's writing are better than any scouting assistant personnel guy that you have just in your staff, right? Because he has the years and experience that he has doing this, and he knows what a guy is supposed to look like, what a real dude looks like, right? So if you're Mario and you may be on the fence about a guy one way or another, you see the reports that Alonzo has, and also have the ability to talk to him about these guys, right? Because he's there in the building. And Alonzo is able to get a sense for these guys, talk to some of these kids, right? He's seen it all. He's seen the BS that guys throw at him in the interview process. He can read these guys. And mainly, to me, it's the kind of clout that he brings when he talks to these guys, because he comes with a real level of respect. When he tells them, I have the blueprint for you to get to the next level. I'm not going to BS you. You're a great player, but if you want to take it to the next level and you want to be an NFL player, an NFL prospect, then this is what you have to do. And he can tell them, I've done this for a very long time, right? So to me, having him in the building, like you said, Terry, I know it was a little bit of an elongated response I had, but he's very, very important inside of what goes on.
It's also a self-created position, right? It's not like every school has this GM of recruiting position. We made it for him, and then obviously he's got the Miami green and orange and green blood. So like he bleeds. He's a guy who's been there, done that, and then obviously at the next level with the Packers as an assistant GM, he can, like you said, give the blueprint for what it takes to get to the next level, and he actually has the connections and the people. So I definitely, and my brothers worked with him once upon a time, not anymore, but my brothers worked with him and said he's definitely involved in recruiting. So it's awesome to have him a part of our team. I got to head out, Pete. Is anything?
No, I appreciate you coming on, Cammy. Thank you, man.
All right, man. Thanks, guys. And again, Peter, keep killing it. You're doing great.
Go Canes.
Take it easy.
Later. So we'll finish up here, answer some of these questions coming in. Frank Ladson, Steven. Look, obviously comes in came in last year from Clemson. Didn't see that much playing time. But you're looking for anyone to step up at wide receiver, and no one. There's been a few guys who have established themselves. Obviously, we expect Xavier Strepo to be one of the more consistent guys, but you're looking for someone to step up. Could he be that guy? There hasn't been a ton of buzz about him. I'm going to be honest, as someone who's been doing anything crazy in the offseason, but wide receiver is an interesting spot. I don't think he's the first option right now, but he can easily play his way in there. Like you said, with his body, with his frame, gives you a little bit of a different element out there. But we'll see. There's going to be a lot of guys who are getting touches in this offense with Shannon Dawson. Canes Cats Heat, appreciate it, man. Obviously, congratulating me on the Titus Howard deal that was just finished with the Texans. That was awesome. And answering your question, try to get one of the assistant baseball coaches on the show. Yeah, definitely. And that is something that I want to try to do moving forward, is try to get more of a official thing going with coach of the school. A lot of times it's, these guys have their schedules and they have their allotted media time after practice and stuff. But I can definitely start to try to work on getting some staff members from Miami on the show as well. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Appreciate everyone for coming on. Thank you again to Dalen Russell for joining the show. James Scott asking here, as I'll answer this, who all do we expect to announce after the weekend? I don't know. I think that what D Money mentioned on his update was that one of the names that we haven't heard much about, who's maybe committed elsewhere, is a flip candidate in the immediate future. So maybe keep your eyes open for that. Like, subscribe. Obviously, every Thursday night we have this live show. The podcast, drop that a couple times a week. Whenever we get a commit, we get to do an instant reaction podcast. Sign up to the website. Always have the latest news there on the forums, on the recruiting board. That's the place that you want to be. It's free, 100% free, CanesInsight.com. Appreciate you guys all for joining tonight. Go Canes.